This is the legendary tale of how darkness cannot snuff out the light. The tale of Fyore, the kind mage. Now, where were we? Yes, Chapter 2, Windhelm. After escaping the cave, Fyore decides to journey to Windhelm, the closest city, to find more suitable company and a proper place to rest. After all, being an older man alone in Skyrim is not ideal. Arriving at Windhelm, Fyore stops on a mountain trail and observes the city from afar, taking in the view of the surrounding area. Unsure of what he will find in the city, Fyore approaches the city gates and searches for a warm place to rest. Once he arrived in Windhelm, Fyore finds the Candle Hearth Hall, where he uses the gold LUNEIA gave him and rents a room for 30 consecutive nights, afraid to leave his chambers due to the trauma he incurred from the NECROMANCER. Unable to sleep, Fyore spends most of his nights awake as he is terrified to close his eyes, fearing to be caught off guard. During this time, Fyore spends most of his days enclosed in his room, pacing back and forth or staring at the walls, where he grieves over his lost years as a thrall to the NECROMANCER. After a week of no sleep, Fyore, unable to keep his eyes open, drifts into a fever dream where he sees his younger self, a healthy, long brown-haired Nord without a care in the world. The dream begins with Fyore playing and swimming in a cool stream on a warm summer day out in the wilderness. Pure bliss. The dream then changes to the young Fyore spending an evening in a local inn where he plays his songs for the locals as they cheer him on, as Fyore is quite adept on his lute. Again, the dream changes, but this time it takes a dark twist as Fyore watches his younger self sitting by a campfire begin to convulse violently as if being possessed by darkness. Fyore, covered in sweat, jerks himself awake, terrified that he had somehow become a thrall again. Rushing to the mirror to check his appearance, Fyore notices his long hair has now gone gray and thinned significantly on top. Abducted at a young age, Fyore mentally feels as though he hasn't aged a day past 18, yet the rusted mirror in his room haunts him with the reminders of how much time was stolen from him. Enraged by how much the NECROMANCER took from him, Fyore reaches for a small blade in the dresser drawer and holds it to his neck. Feeling as though he has nothing left to live for, Fyore plans on ending his life. But before he can, a kind voice beckons to him. "That's no way to enter Sovngarde now, is it?" said ELDA, the owner of the inn, now standing in the open doorway. "Figured I would come check on you since you never leave your room," said ELDA. Ashamed of what was about to occur, Fyore hid the knife behind his back and remained silent. ELDA looked him up and down and said, "Let's get you cleaned up," grabbing the blade from behind Fyore's back and motioning for him to have a seat in the corner chair in his room. ELDA applies a blend of oils to Fyore's hair and begins to shave his head and clean the shape of his ragged beard. Once finished, ELDA looks at him and says, "Who would have guessed such a handsome Nord was under all that mess? By the way, we got some fresh baked bread and good cheese if you're after a bite to eat." ELDA heads out of the room and leaves the door open, allowing the bard's music to flow down the hall and into Fyore's room. Fyore, moved by ELDA's kindness towards a mere stranger, feels peace for the first time since exiting the NECROMANCER's cave. That night, as he lies in bed, Fyore clung to that feeling of kindness and swore to himself to freely offer that same kindness to anyone in need as he drifted asleep. The next day, Fyore packed his things and left his room, thanking ELDA on his way out. Fyore determined himself to get acquainted with the city and to explore his passion for alchemy during his time in Windhelm.
Our hero claims a warrior's heart. I tell you, the Dragonborn comes with a voice-wielding power of the ancient Nord art. Believe, the Dragonborn comes.
Thank you all so much for watching episode 2 of Skyrim Legends. Behind the scenes, this episode was really fun to write and also animate at the same time. Writing Fyore's story took me about 4 weeks from start to finish, so I have his entire written story completed. Now I'm just animating through the Skyrim engine a weekly episode for you all to watch. This week's episode, I really wanted to set up episode 3 by exploring, I should say, Fyore's mental health leading into future episodes. It's really important, right? So I wanted to explore what was it like leaving the Necromancer's cave after just experiencing what he did by killing the Necromancer and meeting a vampire and realizing he's been a thrall for 40 years and just gaining consciousness. I wanted to explore how jarring would that be, and then leaving a cave and being in Skyrim. Right, so I wanted to explore those themes through the lens of inability, because Fyore is older, he doesn't use weapons, he's not strong enough to wield them, so Fyore's character is based on an Alteration mage that can't wear armor, can't use weapons, and he's limited to only using Alteration spells and staves and scrolls. So that's really the backbone of Fyore's entire story. And in this episode, we see him struggle with insomnia. He doesn't sleep for several weeks. We also see him struggle with suicidal ideation, where luckily ELDA enters the scene and is a beacon of light and a beacon of hope for Fyore, which actually is a key element and theme for Fyore. You know, ELDA extends kindness to Fyore, who's a stranger. And Fyore is deeply impacted by that and remembers that and swears to himself to do the same thing for others, which is a really important theme that we're going to explore in future episodes as well, through the lens of Fyore. The filming aspect of this episode was interesting. I had to use a lot of NPCs as, I guess you could call them dummies, or what they call it, stunt doubles, right? So the scene where Fyore is going to sleep in the bed, that's actually a mercenary that I hired and then used a command to basically wear the clothing that I'm wearing, so it appears that it was Fyore going to sleep. And in fact, it was actually a mercenary. Additionally, controlling ELDA, some of those scenes was interesting. There's actually, behind the door that's closed in a lot of those scenes is actually a clone of ELDA. I accidentally duplicated her in the process of learning how to control NPCs for different machinimas. So that was really funny. I hope you guys enjoyed this, really do. Behind the scenes, I would say that I'm really enjoying it, and I would love for you guys' feedback, commentary, drop a like, drop a comment. My goal is to finish one episode a week, and yeah, your participation through this journey would be great. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, stay nerdy. Bye.